Negro and John were the only normal people on the floor, so we hung out all the time. It was the 5th floor, north wing, and I'll always remember, that's what this speech is called, I'll always remember. I'll always remember the first thing we talked about was hockey. I walked in his room and he had a Hartford Whalers flag on his wall, and I told him a story about how my mom's been married like many times. Her second husband, that's no joke, her second husband was part owner of the Hartford Whalers back when they were the New England Whalers. And I told them a story. Does anybody know who Gordie Howe is?
Hell yeah!
All right, so for anybody that doesn't, other than Bobby Orr and Wayne Gretzky, Gordie Howe was probably the greatest hockey player of all time. So he played on the Whalers until he was like 61. And we went down to a game because my stepdad was the owner of the team. And I met Gordie Howe. I don't really remember the circumstances really well, but I was a little brat and I kicked him in the shins. Seriously, and he fell to the ground. My stepfather was fucking horrified. I think I was like 5. And I told John this story the first day we met, and he thought I was pretty hardcore after that, and used to call me hardcore when I'd see him around campus, like, "Hey, hardcore, man, what's up?" And so, of all the people I've ever told that story to, I think John was the one person, because of being such a crazy Whalers fan. John really got it, and I really appreciate that. So I'll always remember hearing the news about John's death. I got a text from Beth, and how ironic, I was at a hockey game with my daughter and my girlfriend and my mother, and I was standing in line for the bathroom, and I started to cry. And some big, bear-looking dude with a Boston accent in front of me was like, "Hey man, somebody needs a fucking hug." And he gives me a hug. It was really special. It was special. So I'll always remember how John Patrick Bowles was one of the smartest people in my entire life that I've ever met. I'm sure you guys all know that. And we love to talk about politics and history. In the spring of '92, I asked John what he was doing for the summer, and he's like, "I have no idea." And I'm like, "Hey man, like 8 of us are renting a house on 30 Isham Street, and so we did the math, and we figured out that if we rented out the dining room, it would be cheaper. So we picked up a 9th roommate. Oh, fuzzy math. We did fuzzy math. And so John moved in with us, joined our whole group of friends, and the rest is history. The kitchen was the gathering place for all of us, and I'm so psyched so many of you came back today. So John was like the guy on the couch, but he was the guy in the dining room. So whenever you were in the kitchen, John was always there, like watching tube, and "Hey, what's up?" I'll always remember that JPB, I'm going to call him that too, JPB, was always making people laugh. That's the first thing. Number 2 is he was the best dressed guy in the room, always. Like colorful button-down or polo shirts, like yellow, bright blue, pink, whatever. He was kind of a preppy, right? At least until like the Uncommon Ground stage of his life, which was after college. So I'll always remember, this is one of the funnest weekends, the funnest weekend I've ever had in my life. During that summer, when we were living at 30 Isham, about 12 of us descended down to the lonely town of Cohasset, Massachusetts, because we heard my parents were out of the country. This weekend is known as Big Drink Weekend. One of our cars broke down in New Hampshire halfway there, and some random guy, this is the kind of karma that Bowles brought around him. Some guy stopped on the highway from that town in New Hampshire and was like, "Where are you guys going?" We're like, "Oh, we're going down to Cohasset, Mass with our keg and our beer ball and like the 5 of us." And he's like, "Okay, I'll give you a ride." This guy named Lenny drove us all the way to Cohasset, Massachusetts, probably like almost 2 hours. And I'll always remember the phone call he made to his girlfriend, like explaining what he was doing and how He's like, oh my God, I might get divorced now. I'll always remember the great time we had at Big Drink weekend, that same weekend. We went to see the Jerry Band show down at Great Woods. And I'm not saying it's me, I'm not blaming John, but he can't defend himself now, but somebody bought mushrooms off a dude with a snake around his neck. Kieran, do I have that right? There was a snake. I was not hallucinating because we did not do mushrooms yet. Which is a good segue into when we got back from the show on mushrooms. John found, we were making margaritas. This is a great story. If anybody's not listening, you should listen. We were making margaritas at my parents' house in Cohasset, and John found a New Kids on the Block tape, and he was so cracked up yet pissed off at the same time that my family would have a New Kids on the Block tape that he insisted that we're going to drink the New Kids on the Block tape. So he put it in the blender with the margaritas and blended it on high. Might have been Pulse, but either way, the tape was shredded and we literally all drank the New Kids on the Block tape. Kieran reminded me tonight that he was pulling pieces of the cassette tape out of his teeth. That's a true story. I don't know how we're still alive today, but I'll always remember that same night, John Bowles had the idea like, hey man, check this out. We took the metal oven rack out of the oven. He went and got metal coat hangers out of the closet and we put them around our ears like earrings, and the hooks were holding on to the metal oven rack, and Bowles just started slamming on the metal oven rack with a metal spoon, and you could feel this metal like through your head. I'm telling you, this shit happened. I have photos on me if you want to see. So John was always a big kid at heart, a big teddy bear, and I'll never forget. I'll always remember the weekend at Beth's cabin. It was at Stowe, Stratton. At Stratton, John Bowles was like, "Hey, let me hold your daughter," and I have a picture of him on me if you want to see it, holding my now 18-year-old daughter who's starting UVM in 2 months, but John holding her at 6 months old. And John was a great dad. I remember we were hiking during that weekend, and I wasn't with Corinthia's mother at that time, and I told John, I was like, I think I'm in over my freaking head here. I'm not ready to be a parent. And John's advice was, well, it's time to swim. So thanks to John, I've been swimming for the next 17 years, and my daughter's doing great, and a big part of that, I think I owe to John and the great advice he gave me. I'll always remember John's last comment on Facebook. Anyone? Amazeballs! I want to go out saying something crazy like that. The last contact I had with John was probably January, and he contacted me regarding a picture on Facebook, and he told me I was a very highly attractive man. That was one of our things. Most highly. And I'll always remember how our late friend Enlo McLean Abernathy, aka Mackie, lives on in us, in our minds. He died some time ago, January 2004, right? And I've learned to deal with his passing because Mackie lives on inside me, and I love it. He's a part of me today. I feel it. I've talked to him in my head a few times. And I know it's going to be the same way with Bowles. If he was in your life, he's going to be with you forever. And that's sort of life, is you affect the people around you with love and friendship. So, and as Matt said earlier, we were his family, and I love that his cousin came. I don't know the full details of how he had problems with his family, but I remember during our sophomore year, his mother died, and suddenly Bowles inherited $24,000. And when you're 19 years old in 1991, inheriting $24,000, what the fuck? Bowles went on a spending spree and spent it all in about 4.5 to 5 months. But that's another story. Come see me after this, and I'll tell you all about it. I don't want to take too long because I want to hear more of this, more from other people.
He bought kegs for everybody for like 2 months straight.
He bought kegs, and I may have been his weed dealer and slightly benefited. So, in closing, I just want to thank Matt, Taylor, Capo, everybody. Tisha, thank you so much. I want to talk to you after this. Thank you for putting this together. This is such a good send-off, and you know, I want to hold that Folgers mug with John. And so I'll always remember how Matt rallied around everyone. He rallied everyone to raise the money to go out and bring them home. Is Chaz here?
Yeah.
I want to meet you, dude. I do. I'm going to come talk to you in a second. So Matt rallied everyone to bring JPB back home to Burlington, back where he belongs. When his damn family wouldn't. We are his family. We're his friends. So in closing, hats off and cheers to the most highly, highly attractive man to ever come through Burlington, Vermont, Sir John Patrick Bowles.